Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. This is a test, and I'm going to record this using my new Mac. So I just want to see how this goes, guys. And just to touch on a subject here, we're talking about tariffs. Are you ready to have a Nintendo Switch 2 made in the USA? That's right. That's what I'm talking about today. Guys, I came from a place, right? I'm an old timer. Absolutely. And I came from a place where the consoles that I played on as a child were made in the US. Now, eventually, they went overseas, right? But these consoles were made right here in the USA. The first Atari that I had was made in the US, I believe. The Intellivision started off in the US. The ColecoVision started in the US, which are, the consoles that I loved. I owned the 2600 and the ColecoVision. And are we in an era where we're going to see this again? I mean, a brand new opportunity for people to work in something that they love. Can you imagine how many people would actually go to work for one of these companies if they opened up here, if these tariffs continue, if they can't resolve this? I think it would be a great thing, to tell you the truth. I'm not shying away from it. I mean, I would go work for Nintendo in a heartbeat if they had a little, manufacturing division here in the US. It probably wouldn't be in California, let me tell you that. Not with the taxes here and the regulations and all this crap. It probably would not be here. But I bet there's plenty of people out there, that are blue collar workers, that are fans of video games, that work in different industries, that would love to work for one of these companies, whether it's Sony making PlayStations here in the US, or whether it's Nintendo making consoles in the US. Guys, back in the days, even, if you go back and look for arcade machines being assembled, they were assembled right here in the US. A lot of it came from Silicon Valley. That's where the technology was. And we've lost that. We've lost that. When people hear tariffs and hear all this stuff, there's a lot of, fear mongering out there for the asset class, right? For people that owns a lot of stocks. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing 20, 15%. I'm, depending how their portfolio is made up, right? They might be suffering more or less. Some people are making money. Right now, as we speak, there's investors making money because they're shorting a bunch of stocks, right? And their portfolios are made, however the experts are telling them to. Apparently our politicians are clairvoyant and they make money no matter what, right? But the truth is that when I grew up, back in the 70s and 80s, most of the wealth was held by the middle class, right? It was, people could make a living, could buy a house, with just a regular job. That would be enough to pay for a home, right? You could live the American dream. That changed as manufacturing specifically started moving out of the US. Because now you had, these type of, middle income jobs that were shipped out overseas where people were not making, whatever they're making here in the US, $20 an hour, they're making $2. So you can make cheaper stuff, send it back to the US and sell it over here for 15. But all that money's going back to, of course, the foreign country that's selling it, right? Whatever profit was left. And here we were just left with a service, so the salesman was getting a commission. But that person going to the factory every day, getting, dental, getting health insurance benefits and all that stuff, those jobs are gone, right? Because it's much cheaper to make it overseas where you don't have to give any benefits whatsoever. The drawback is that you pay more for things. Now, would you pay more for the console if it was made here in the US, right? If let's just say, for the sake of argument, right, the Nintendo Switch is $500 after the tariffs, and you could buy it at $500. It wouldn't go low in price, but you could buy it right here, made in the USA. Would you choose to do that? I mean, I would, because I know the benefits that I would bring to our country, right? Bring manufacturing back to our country. And it's not only the manufacturing, everything that goes around it. There's towns like Detroit, for example, when all the automakers left and went over to Mexico and China and Canada, they just became ghost towns. They became relics of what they once were. When I was growing up, saying Detroit was something mighty. Nothing, absolutely nothing to what it is now. The Rust Belt, we had steel, we had so many industries. And when those closed down, lives were destroyed. So we lost quite a bit. Unfortunately, for most of you that are probably listening to me speak on this video, you were not part of it. You never got to see that, right? You never saw that growing up. I did. I saw the huge change. I saw the neighborhoods changing from everybody owning their house to houses getting to split up into halves, into 3 portions. And now you had 3 families in one house because they couldn't afford the whole house by themselves, because the nature of the market, the nature of business had changed. And then we supplemented, that, of course, with, migration and stuff like that. It just didn't get any better for those workers. And what you're seeing now is a huge shift, a huge reaction. And we're feeling it in the video game market right now, right? But we're only feeling part of it. But let me tell you this, as an American, as what I've seen people do with their lives when they have a good paying job, right? When everybody's making more money, then these things become more affordable, even if they're more, right? When the person next to you has health insurance, has dental insurance, has all these things that are being provided for by industry, because when you have all this manufacturing open, even for non-skilled labor, people are competing because there's only so many Americans, right? At some point you have to start importing. But the ones that are left, the best of the best, get taken care of. That's the way it was in the past. And once the jobs started going overseas, once we started diluting the market, that was not true anymore. Now, whether you agree with people in office politically or not, it really has nothing to do with it, right? And the market just shifted because of business changes, of looking what is more profitable. And that in itself is not capitalism per se, because capitalism is an open free market. If we were making products here in the same way that other countries were making it, that would be an open market. But when you have other markets undercutting you, not paying employees what they're supposed to, not paying what they're worth, using slave labor in many cases to produce the same products in sweatshops and stuff like that. Well, in a capitalist market, you're never going to compete because you have a business trying to do everything the right way, providing health insurance, providing dental benefits, retirement, all that stuff. And somebody else over there overseas is paying $1 an hour. Well, they're going to make it for cheaper. Will this change things abroad? I don't know. I hope it does. I hope it, whatever the outcome is, I hope it makes it better for people altogether. But at the end of the day, would I buy a console made in America if all things were equal, right? As opposed to a console made in China or a console made in Japan? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's going to be an advantage for the first company that says we're making our consoles here in America. Of course, other than John Alvarado and the Amico, right? For real video game consoles being made here. If Nintendo comes back to the States, man, I'm getting a job application right away. Okay, humans, thank you so much. This is just a test. I'm testing out my Mac to see if it works. And hopefully it does. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.